Sean Puffy P. Diddy Brother Love Combs. And I have to make a couple of things straight, but before I do that, my name is Master Gano Grills from Galighticus, and I've been watching this event, this train wreck, since 1991. And for those of you who are watching tonight, I'm going to remind you at various points throughout the evening to please hit the like button, subscribe, and share if you like. So, with all things due, I need to make a few things clear. I want to make clear my intention and my reason for doing this. It's very, very important. Before we get to the disclaimers, I want to articulate my intention as clearly as possible to all of you watching now and who will be watching forevermore after this moment has already passed. I am doing this because it's the right thing to do. And I want to acknowledge all of the people who are what you may call whistleblowers, light bearers, way showers, snitches even, because there's going to be some people from the hood that are going to say, oh, Master Gano, you're snitching. I can't get on deck. I'm not jacking what you're saying right now, as the kids say today. But I feel like I particularly have a moral responsibility to discuss this. And I've been asked to discuss this by some people from my community. So I'm doing it in the safe space of the Galighticus page for those people who are interested in seeing what my point of view is. I'm doing this and I'm taking a deeper spiritual look as a public service announcement and offering as spiritual education. Me personally, at the age that I am now, I've learned to look at things more spiritually and mostly from a spiritual place because it's just a muscle that I have developed. And because I've done that, it makes my life easier and it has spilled over so that I can teach about things and help people who may not have developed their own sense of spiritual knowledge. And some things are not spiritual, some things are commonsensical. The reason, again, that I'm doing this is because I have people in my family. I have a lot of women in my family. I have 2 daughters. I have a mother who is still living. My father is not amongst the living. I have babies' mothers, 2 of them. I have 4 granddaughters, and I love them very much. And I have a lot of women, 4 women in my chain of command. I have a lot of women students, and I have a lot of women that are in the Galighticus community. And there are lots of people that I have personally who are friends, acquaintances of mine that I've known for years who happen to be women. And if you guys notice that I've left out the men for now, but this is really more about women. I'm talking about this because I have women and girls, little girls, young girls in my family that are related to me by blood and people that I love and are concerned about and care about, that if some of these things that Sean Puffy Combs, P. Diddy, has allegedly done happened to my loved ones and the people that I care about, may the gods forbid, or anyone in my family, I would be very upset, to say the least. And I probably wouldn't be sitting here with you right now. And a lot of times when I'm just driving about and I'm driving, to give you an example, I drive probably 6 days a week. And it's not uncommon for me to pull over if I see that there's somebody in need, or if there's something that I can do to help move things along. I've done it all my life, as far back as I can remember. If there's an opportunity for me to help someone or help a situation, literally, I've gotten out of my truck because I see there's a need for someone who can see what's going on to help the traffic or to stop things from being backed up. I'll be the one to do it. It's not a problem. I am a service to humanity. I'm in service to humanity. And I realized that if more people had that viewpoint, life on this planet would be a lot better. Life in society would be a lot better. We would have more people that would have an impetus and an inspiration possibly to do what's right and not just go with the popular viewpoint, which a lot of times is flawed. So I realized that I have an opportunity to speak out about the monstrosities and the allegations of this individual. So that's my reason, guys, for doing this. I also feel that everybody who has celebrated the accomplishments of Bad Boy and the music and Diddy, everybody who has added their energy to his celebrity, everybody who has listened to Bad Boy music, anybody that's partied with Diddy, has somewhat of a responsibility to share what it is that they know. Why do I feel that way? Is because I believe that this pariah and cancer, not just Diddy, but people like him. When there's a rapist and someone who has been proven guilty of, let me change my language because right now that's not politically correct. But if there's someone who SAs or sexually assaults a minor, that in society is frowned upon, should be frowned upon everywhere. There's certain ways that people like that should be dealt with. But the service to humanity or to certain communities that provide an invaluable service is they have to register with the sexual offense. I forget what that's called. But this way, you know that there's somebody like that in your neighborhood, and you have to keep your head on a swivel or keep your eyes open in case you see this guy, and make sure that you're more vigilant so that your child or your loved one or someone that you care about does not come under attack by this particular individual. I think it's a great idea because there's a lot of people that have that stamped onto their name. Let's take it a little bit further. When it comes to people like Diddy and all of the allegations that he has, and we're going to take a deep look into that spiritually. There's lots of people covering that. I think that people have an obligation and a responsibility to publicly declare what side of history they are on, what side of justice they are on by not remaining quiet. There's lots of people who are too cowardly to speak out because they're afraid of any type of retribution that may happen to them. And I think that's cowardly. But it is your prerogative to remain silent if you don't feel it's your place to speak about it. Everybody is not as bold as 50 Cent or other people. And we're going to get to him later also. We're going to talk about whether it's wrong or right for another black man to tear down another black man, that's not what this is about. This is about right and wrong. And right and wrong is beyond color. And for people who are confused about their obligation not to say anything because they're black and they don't want to tear another black man down, I'd help you with that by saying that that's not the case here. This is over and beyond the racial epidermis of your presentation, which may be melanated or not. It's irrelevant, Umar Johnson. So that's the reason why I'm doing this. And I'm also going to tell you in the coming days, weeks, months, and maybe years, this is going to be a classic study. And lots of people are talking about this for their own reasons. I'm talking about it because it's a cautionary tale to teach from, as most of the things that I do talk about, because I normally don't lend my voice to things like this that are going on in different medias unless I see a very valuable or invaluable opportunity to teach my community and communicate with my community about some of the things that most people don't see as clearly as I do. And also, I noticed that I have a very unique spiritual standpoint for obvious reasons. And the people in my community, they understand what that is, right? So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That's my reason for speaking about this. Now, let's get to the disclaimers. The disclaimers, I had a very interesting conversation with my mom. Hi, mommy, if you're watching. Love you very much. She asked me about, uh, a few things. And my disclaimer, we had a very decorated conversation about judgment. I am nobody's judge. Um, I told my mother that there's a difference, and we've talked about this. This is an ongoing conversation that my mom and I seem to have, and I don't know if she really gets it, but I do. And I talk to people all the time, and I say, there is a difference between judgment, which indicts people and places them in your own verbal hell, and observation. I'm simply observing. This is part of the disclaimer that I want to make public for the record, right? We're going on record with this. I personally am going on record as Master Gano Grills underneath the banner of Galighticus, and I am personally sharing my point of view and my observation about very public things that P. Diddy himself and Bad Boy have made public. So I am not violating anyone's privacy by sharing these things, because all of these things that we're talking about is no one's personal business, because he himself has made it public, or some of his artists that he has contractually obligated to be underneath his banner have made public. So we're not breaking any laws here. And whenever I need to have plausible deniability, whenever I need to protect myself, I would say allegedly, or allegations, right? That's the disclaimer that's happening tonight. Now that we have my intention out of the way and disclaimers out of the way, and I want to take my time with this, and this might not be as deep as I'm making it, who knows? But I still would like for you to learn something and maybe be inspired. I'm getting a phone call, so I don't know if this is, I'm going to ignore that, and I'm hoping that it's not my chain of command. And real quick, I'm just looking at all of these. Okay, cool. I hope we're good. Let's see. Yeah, bear with me, guys. I'm just reading some of these things. And you guys can hear me clearly, right? I'm good. I'm good. Let me know. So I could just kind of look over at the chat and see if everything is okay. Okay. Thank you. Yay. All right. So let's get back on the horse, guys. As I said before, I've met Diddy twice. Never been to any Diddy parties. When I met him, he was cool and a fan. I don't have any problem with him personally, outside of the allegations, the things that I've heard so many different times, rumor or not, but the things that people have alleged that he has done, I have a problem with that. Again, which is part of my motivation for speaking out against it, because I particularly pray for a world that is free of pariahs like him, like Jeff Epstein, and the perverts of the world, and Harvey Weinstein, and all of the people who operate in the darkness, in the cracks, and all the child molesters and the traffickers. I think all of those people should be gathered up and put in CCOT forever. You don't have the sovereignty or the divine right to hold anyone hostage and turn them into your personal slave, or to bully anyone, or to be unceremoniously unkind to anyone. And me as um, a divine, the divine avatar of Tehuti, I love justice. I don't like imbalance and injustice. I have a personal avarice towards that. And, it affects how I move along in this life. It helps to keep me on track. And it also exacerbates my disgust against other people personally. And, I do my best not to judge people, but I'll do that silently or amongst my chain of command, because I know that they can handle the gravity of my opinion and judgment when I articulate it. Although I don't do that societally or amongst my friends, I really do my best to keep that to myself and only amongst people that I know me well enough to know that I am not unceremonious with my advocacy for justice or what's right. Right? Okay, so back to Sean Combs. I've looked at pictures of him when he was a young boy. And, a lot of us that grew up during that era, we put on fashion shows and we dressed a certain way and we entertained the people in our family. If you watch the Eddie Murphy movie, he was someone also that perfected his genius by entertaining his family early. I also did the same thing when I was 5 years old, 4 years old. My mother would, allow me to, put on my knickers and my hats and my belts, and I would do these little fashion shows in front of my family, my grandmother who lived with us when we lived in Park Hill for 1 year, and the largest part of my family were there. My aunt Loretta, my dad, my mom, my sister, and my cousin Tony, right? And my mom and my dad had people come over and entertain, so I know what it was like to give people enjoyment through your particular form of entertainment, as innocent as it was. So I get it. And I've seen those pictures and similarities with Diddy. I think a lot of us do that. A lot of children do that. And what I've seen the difference in today, in 2025 going into 2026, a lot of times there aren't any grandparents in the home. That's another deficit that I see, but that's a video for another time. And because the grandparents aren't in the home the way that they used to be way back in the days, in the 60s and the 70s, I think the 70s going into the 80s was the coming of the end of that period where grandparents started becoming more absent in the home. There's a serious detriment and repercussion in society today, in part because of that attack of having that structure in not just black homes, but homes overall, because now we have old folks' homes, as they say, and, places where old people sometimes are unceremoniously put into. Retirement communities are cool if they choose to do that, but I personally feel that we should still have the presence of grandparents, and if they're still amongst the living, great grandparents in the home. Why? Because they're able to place that old way and that knowledge and those, the things that have been lost through time into the newer children. But like I said, that's a video for another time. Sean Puffy Combs is a very, very talented, and I'm going back to the earlier part, not now. He's incarcerated at the moment, and he will be for a while, for the unforeseeable future, maybe for the next few months or the next couple of years. I forget what the sentence was, but he was someone that was very driven and had a very serious work ethic. And to his estimate, he said he worked 20 hours a day sometimes. And because of that, he's analogous to Kevin Hart in terms of also working those long hours and accomplishing a great deal. While most people are asleep, he was working and cultivating things. And I have to measure how much of this I want to talk about, because there's so many people talking about this. But just for reference, I'm going to tell you the things that I know that I remember about Diddy in the public eye. Before I go into that, I just want to shout out a couple of people, and let's call them, for lack of a better term, the agency that damages the um, I don't know if we should call them that. Let's just call them the agency, for lack of a better term, right? There's about 7 to 10 people. I just want to acknowledge them and shout them out. And also, if you guys want to take notes on this, right? If you really want to know what has formed the basis of why I feel the way I feel, which is pretty ironclad, I've seen some things that has also helped me to get to this juncture point of what I understand to be true, based on all of the elements that I've put together. And I want to share them with you. Okay. First one is the alleged Kim Porter book. I don't know if it's still on YouTube. I heard it was taken off, but I listened to it as soon as it hit YouTube. And when I listened to that audio book, it talked a lot about the rumors that you've heard and 𝙬𝙗𝙪. And I believe 𝙂𝙪𝙪 Lee has a lot to do with that. 𝙂𝙪𝙪 Lee Simmons, shout out to you. Man, that was really telling. For those of you who are Diddy sympathizers and who protect P. Diddy, and who don't think it's possible for someone to be so monstrous, through allegations or not, listen to that book. That's the first one. The second one is all of the allegations, and I'm saying allegations, plausible deniability, right? 𝙬𝙗𝙪, he's still amongst the living, whereas Heavy D, Andre Harrell, Biggie, Pac, Wolf, and those are just 5 off the top of the head, are no longer amongst the living. And they knew things, and things died with them, if you will. There's another documentary that's really good, came out in 2021. Shout out to D. Rockefeller for doing that. It's called Biggie, I Got a Story to Tell. I do believe it's on Netflix. It's very good. I do believe it's about 90 minutes to 2 hours. It will also give you a really good look at who Biggie was, who he became to be. I would have liked to have seen more of his relationship captured with Tupac. I would like to have seen more about his relationship with Lance on Rivera, my boy. What's up, Lance, if you're watching? I would like to have seen more of his connection to Sean Carter, Jay-Z, and that would have completed it. But these guys may not have wanted to be filmed, I don't know, but it's still a solid documentary, and that also has led into the way that I feel about Diddy and today, and as going into factoring all of the elements. Gene Deal. Gene Deal has put out a great deal of information. Some of the things may be questionable for whatever reason, but Gene Deal also, I believe, was a missing element in a few of the documentaries. I do believe he's going to be in 𝙬𝙗𝙪's documentary that's supposed to be coming out, I believe, on Peacock. I'm waiting for that. And a lot of the same characters that you see in The Fall of Diddy, which is another very good 5-part series, you will see in The Reckoning, executive producer 50 Cent, director Alexis Stapleton, right? You'll see some of those same people in all 3. And that's fine. That's great. So Gene Deal has a lot to say about some of the things that he personally claims to have witnessed that are very, very, very telling. I don't know. Well, I do know, because according to him, he didn't make that cut with Alexis Stapleton, but he's coming out with a book that I'm sure will be very good as well. Jaguar Wright has been, lots of people say that, she's capping, as they say, and her credibility allegedly has been damaged because of some of the alleged lies that people say that she has told. But I personally witnessed a lot of her videos a few years ago when this first broke, and uh, she's a good orator. She's funny as all get. She's hilarious. I was entertained by some of her viewpoints. Some of the allegations that she has claimed are very wild and have not been proven and don't hold a lot of weight. But the things that did land were very entertaining. Spelling out all of these people in the agency, for lack of a better term, to make a point, and I'm almost done. Choke no joke. I know Choke no joke personally, and sometimes I have to call him up and say, Choke, what are you doing, man? I called Choke the other night because Choke no joke had put a video out saying that Suge Knight was a liar. I didn't even watch the entirety of the video. I just put down the phone. I called Choke up and I said, bro, what are you doing? Why are you calling Suge Knight a liar, dude? Like, you are messing with this man's legacy. Even though he's incarcerated, his reach is very long, pause. And I don't want you to come up, you got to be careful. And he heard me out. I admonished him. I tongue lashed him, and I gave him my opinion. I said, listen, brother, you got to be careful. You're putting an X on your back. He heard me out, and you know what he said? He said, well, brother, just pray for me then. Another time I got on show pause, and I said, listen, brother, you got to, you're putting yourself in the middle of a lot of these things, and it's like, you're a target. You're making yourself a target. And he told me then that he felt like he was doing the Lord's work. Okay, so be it. You also have another journalist who's been around for maybe 30 years, 𝙭. There are some people who don't like 𝙭 for whatever reason. I also called 𝙭 the other night because right after I called Choke No Joke, I saw that 𝙭 had a video also saying that he no longer believes that Diddy is responsible for the death of Tupac and Biggie. And I found the timing very interesting, and I wanted to know where 𝙭 got that from. I said, well, why do you feel that way now? What has happened? Did you watch Choke No Joke's video, or did you just come to that conclusion on your own? I want to know. He told me, hey, man, I'm in the Bahamas. I'm like, have a good time. See you when you get back. So that conglomerate of all of those characters, I acknowledge your bravery and your courage, and I salute you on behalf of all of the victims, allegedly, that lay in the wake of his monstrous activities, allegedly. I applaud you for not being afraid and for articulating the things that you know or believe to be true, because a lot of people are not doing that. I also see that a lot of people are quiet and don't say anything. They don't feel the clarion call to come forward and talk about the things that they've witnessed. And that's interesting. We'll get to that later. But I think that the whistleblowers or the snitches or the agency, whatever you choose to call them, and I don't think you should call them the first two, because I don't think that applies. I personally applaud them and acknowledge them, because again, we have to uproot people like and the actions of Diddy and people like him out of society. I also am going to talk later about my personal spiritual standpoint of how he was able to get away and have such a long run. Diddy is a gangster, and he's been very impugned. He's gotten away with a whole lot. Spiritually, that can only happen under darker spiritual means, and we'll get to that in a minute. So I also want to acknowledge all of the artists on and who have been on Bad Boy. It's a lot of them. Got Craig Mack was the very first one, I believe, that was on Bad Boy. And I remember when Craig Mack came out, he was very unique. Craig Mack reminded me, God's blessed the dead. I hope that he's happy. I hope that he's at peace. I hope that he's clapping his hands wherever he's at right now. I also would like to think that he's lending his energy to the exposure and the expose and the spotlight that's being put on all of these indiscretions, allegedly, on these allegations, right? Craig Mack, I remember from firsthand knowledge being around, because I'm old enough to remember these things. It was Craig Mack. It wasn't even Biggie. It was Craig Mack. Flavor in your ear. And Craig Mack reminded me of my man Oliver Grant, Oliver Power Grant from Wu-Tang. I'm sure I'm not the same one, the only one that feels that way. But Craig Mack was very unique. I liked his afro, and I liked his style and the way that he had an interesting rhyme scheme. And I personally feel that Craig Mack did not put his all into the first album. Flavor in Your Ear was cool, and Flavor in Your Ear remix and Get On Down. Those songs were solid, whereas the rest of the album just felt like he just wanted to hurry up and get it out there. And, you got to bust your gun. You got to bring your first fruits to the table. You cannot half step when you have that first opportunity. You got to go for broke. And I think Biggie went more for broke than Craig Mack did. In fact, I think that Biggie heard Craig Mack's album and was like, Puff, come on, man. You got to put that energy behind me, man, because I'm that dude. And I got a lot more weight. And I also think that if they were, I can't prove this, I'm just using my deductive reasoning, right? I think that Diddy listened to both albums, and I know that Craig Mack's album was done first, but Biggie, I believe, put a lot more energy and preface into his album, and you can hear it through the concepts and sonically and all of that stuff. And I think that's why people took to it more, and ultimately it did better because Craig Mack was promoted, but Biggie kind of knocked him out the box. I remember that. So we got Craig Mack, Biggie Smalls, Total, 112, Shine, Loon, G-Dep, Lox, Danity Kane, Mace, Faith, Carl, Thomas, French Montana, Day 26, Dream, Young Jock, Cassie. I'm reading from a list, as you can see. I don't want to leave anybody out. Black Rob, God's Bless the Dead, Fuzz Bubble, Cherry Dinner. Some of those names I've never heard of, but I do remember 112, Total, G-Dep, Lox, of course, right? It's a pretty dope roster. It's pretty extensive, right? Lots of people that, according to them, they weren't happy with, and Mark Curry. He's the one that penned a lot of those songs that Diddy would, claim as his own. He didn't treat his people right, according to them. And that's not an allegation. That's what they say. And it's kind of like part of the consensus. How do you not treat your artist well? How do you put yourself in front of the artist? He got that from Andre Harrell. Rest in peace. Andre Harrell said that there's nobody more important than the A&R. You're above them. And I think that mindset went into Diddy's actions. But I have some questions for you guys. I'm curious to know what you think. Where did Sean Puffy Combs get his bizarre sexual depravity from? Where did his homosexuality come from? Where did his meanness come from? If you have a viewpoint on that, drop it in the chat. I'm curious to know those three questions I'm asking you guys. Where did Diddy's homosexuality come from? Where did his meanness come from? Where did his sexual improprieties and depravity come from? That came from somewhere. Drop it in the chat. And by the way, guys, I want you guys to hit the like button, please. Hit the like button right now if you're there in the chat, please. Right? I want to see those numbers go up, guys. So please, like button, take a moment to hit the like button. Even after tonight and you're watching this, hey, I wasn't part of the live and it's Wednesday, it's Friday, it's Saturday. Hit the like button anyway, please. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So we'll get back to those questions in a minute. And don't forget, guys, I'm going to spell out exactly how I feel Diddy has gotten away with all that he's gotten away with. Now, people in Galighticus, you guys know how I think, more or less. And I don't assume that you do, which is why I constantly poll my audience. I constantly ask, so guys, did you guys know this? Did you guys know that? How many of you, right? Because I think that that establishes a platform that allows me to have a clear understanding that you guys know this or you don't know that. And it allows me to know what it is that I can share with you next, if that makes sense. So now we've established the people that have spoken out clearly about Diddy. Oh yeah, Blue Centric is another one, who I've heard give a very interesting look about the things and putting together some of their viewpoints and really doing a deep dive. And I've seen these things. Art of Dialogue is another one. They've had guests on there, right? That's where Gene Deal and Jaguar, right? She's probably at the lower rung because of the overall consensus of people thinking that she's capping, as they say, or her credibility is not as well established, according to some of the people that are naysayers of her. I understand that. And I've heard some things myself that I've questioned. I said, I don't know about that. Right? So we've established that list of people who have done their own exposés, deep dives, and have put a spotlight on some of these allegations, and all of them, as they should. They've taken up the responsibility and the obligation of uprooting Diddy and his actions, allegedly, and presenting them to society. Why? So that we don't fall underneath the delusion of what he professes. I'll tell you something else that really concerns me, or that irks me, about how freely he has used God. He would always, well, God told me to be still. I remember it might have been about 3 years ago. He said, God woke me up this morning and told me that I need assistance, and I'm looking for you guys. I want to bring all of this to, and God told me to do that. And I sat back and it irked me. It bothered me. It's one of the reasons why I do not care for religion, because people help themselves to say that the creator of all, which is God to them, is talking to them. And they hide their evil in their iniquity, in their blasphemy, and their evil acts under the blanket of God, and it somehow exonerates them. And there's something wrong with that. Diddy did that lavishly, did he not? But did God tell you not to rape, and I say that word, or grape all of the people that you violated? Did God tell you not to drug all the people that you allegedly drugged? Did God tell you not to steal the publishing from your artists and make bad deals with them and make them your slaves and dangle the carrot in front of artists, thinking that they were going to be able to have a career, the career that you promised them? Why is it that when it serves your needs, you're able to be clear about what God told you to do, as opposed to what he didn't tell you to do? Obviously, because now you're in prison. And it's going to be interesting when you come out. Did God tell you to pull out the gun and shoot that lady in the face and blame it on Shine, or somehow Shine had to do 10 years behind you? Almost 10 years. It wasn't a whole 10 years, but I also remember when that happened as well. It was awful. There was a lady that was, the culture at the time was making death threats to her because I forget her name. If you guys know her name, put it in the chat. What's the sister's name? I don't have it on the tip of my tongue. Forgive me for that, guys. But the lady who she says was shot in the face by Diddy, nobody believed her. People hated her because they claimed that she was attacking the culture because Diddy, was holding the culture on his back, which is ridiculous. There's so many different things that uh, this man has been accused of, and a lot of it is plausible. A lot of it has his fingerprints all over it, and you don't have to be a rocket science to put it together and say, I think that's true because I've heard it for 30 years, 20 years, 10 years. Aubrey O'Day is another whistleblower. Shout out to her for not being afraid and not signing that NDA that Diddy loves to give people extensive NDAs that says you can't talk about the Cohn family or his children, for 20 years or if ever, which gives him this thing. And let me shout out Diddy's children. I feel bad for his children because they are openly in support of their father. Some people may think it's because Diddy says, listen, if you want that inheritance, if you want that bag, you better keep your mouth shut. Don't say nothing. Let me ask you guys a question. If you were Diddy's child or one of his children, would you say something? Hey, would you come out and speak against the allegations of your father and say, he's my dad, I love him, but I don't rock with what he did. I publicly denounce anything that he's done, and I'm walking away from this foolishness. Would you do that if you were one of Diddy's children? Drop it in the comment. I'm just curious. I want to read about this, guys. I feel for his children because they're innocent in this whole thing. Although there are allegations against, I'm not going to say any names because that's not cool. But I've heard a thing or two, and well, we'll leave that alone. But they're innocent. They should be free to live their lives. But they're going to face a very important crucible and crossroads one day. They're isolated in the fact that they can't go anywhere without fake love or being ostracized. It might be dangerous for them to go out there because you have people every day that goes by, the volume is getting louder and louder about the people who are waking up out of from the spell of Bad Boy and Diddy. More and more people are starting to realize that the allegations might be true and that I've been under a spell all of this time. And what I've been representing is not in the light. I have to speak out against this. And I can't support something that had an evil force behind it. I feel bad for his children because they're going to have to make a decision one day to either publicly divorce their father and walk away from their father and denounce, rebuke the actions and the allegations, allegedly, of their father so that they can be free to be themselves without the stain of the sins of the fathers falling on the children. That day will come. What will they do? That's a rhetorical question. But I feel for them because they're not the ones that are guilty of the allegations. Their father is. So let's go back. Let's go back to 1991. I remember it well. And I'm glad I didn't go. I don't see myself as being trampled on, but had I been downstairs where those 9 people lost their lives, I would have fought like hell to get out of there. And I don't see myself succumbing to that. I've been in stampedes and I always, through the grace of the gods, have been, have kept my life intact. think about those 9 people. I've seen the footage from that horrible night. And I remember Diddy walking around in all white. His shirt was open, and he is like kind of shell shocked. I know that I know he did what he could to try to help those people. But the problem with the City College debacle and tragedy in 1991 was Diddy over promoted the event. I don't know how much insurance, if there was insurance placed on that, and I don't know if the laws called for that back then. I would imagine that the laws was the same laws that make you have to have an insurance policy in place for a public event of that magnitude would be in place. So I don't think that was an issue, but over promoting an event without making sure that you have adequate security means danger. And because Diddy was the promoter, I'm sure he had a street team and other people that helped him to promote, but he was the one that got the credit for it. It becomes your obligation and responsibility to have adequate security to make sure that things like that don't happen. I know this because I roll with Wu-Tang, as you guys know. And one thing I know, without putting their business in the street, is that they are prepared. When they go places, they are prepared. When I go places, I am prepared. I'm not going to get caught lacking. Whatever you think that means, that's fine. It's important for us to be prepared when we leave our homes. It's important for us to have a fully charged battery on our phones, possibly a backup for us when the phone dies, if it dies. It's important for us to have a full tank of gas. You know, you guys know about my personal feeling about being prepared for anything and everything before you leave your house. I now have adapted this thing over the past few years where I don't go to any party or any public function, even if it's a baby shower or a family event, without eating first. Because I can't be guaranteed that, when I get there, I'm going to like the food, or that I'm not going to subjugate myself to someone else's lack of hygiene. I want to be prepared. So I've been doing that as of late. So I don't want to be ravenous and go any place and have to depend on their food and the X factors that may be part of that, if that makes sense. Hey guys, I want you to hit the like button, please. Let's get those like buttons up, please. I want you to hit the like button. Let's get those thumbs up, guys. And I also want you to take a moment and subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed to the channel. Okay. So the preparation is very important. And in 1991, those 9 deaths could have been avoided. These are young kids, everywhere from 17 to 22 years old. I saw the names, I saw their faces, and families were destroyed behind that. A big hole. Any family member that loses a family member, you guys know, whether it's a brother, sister, sibling, cousin, uncle, niece, nephew, it puts a hole in your family. Diddy is responsible primarily for putting holes in 9 different families and team. He was catapulted to success. Puff Daddy, everybody knew Puff Daddy. But that's when he also changed his name. What did he change his name to? Drop it in the chat. Drop it in the comments. What did Puff Daddy change his name to in 1991 after this tragedy? But let's keep going. So those people lost their lives. There were press junkets, and Heavy D also was to blame. And that's when they say Diddy took everything out of his name and put it in his mother, Janice Combs' name. And, we all know that story. And when he was fired from Uptown Records, he went on to have a meeting with Clive Davis, who was another very interesting personality. After Andre Harrell fired Diddy, he connected with Clive Davis. Now, I'm going to say this in a way that, if I ever do meet Clive Davis, I do want to thank him for signing Earth, Wind, and Fire and Carlos Santana, because Carlos Santana and Earth, Wind, and Fire went on tour in 1975 and came back and made the most incredible music. But they were inspired by Carlos Santana. So Shout out to Clive Davis. But I also know that Clive Davis has also had his problems, and his reputation is not unscathed. Whitney Houston, Clive Davis, those two will forever be synonymous, whatever you want to say about it. But I find it interesting that, that's possibly another video, but Clive Davis never went to jail. He was never, they never really found out what happened. Those two linking up, I'm sure that Clive Davis gave him an education. I'm sure that Clive Davis taught Diddy the do's and the don'ts of this is how you do this, this is how you do that. And he gave him 10 to 15 million dollars to start Bad Boy Entertainment. And I'm 90% positive that he learned some things that probably will never see the light of day and that aren't very well discussed directly from Clive Davis. I had to measure something out. I had to measure this out. Let's talk about some of the things that are public that we know. There are some names that are, again, I am not putting anybody's personal business in the street, but I want to just read off a short list of names of people. Again, these are not allegations. These are, it was written about in the media, in the press, right? So we got Joy Dickinson, who was probably one of the first women who claimed that she was raped by Diddy. And I applaud you, Joy Dickinson, for speaking your truth and getting it out there and getting that off of your soul and taking the action that you needed to take to rid your soul of some of the heaviness that comes with being violated in that manner. That's amazing, because there's a lot of women or some people, men or women, that may have been plausible deniability, that may have been violated by Diddy and some of his people that have not said anything. And that's part of the problem, isn't it? You also have Steve Stout, Kid Cudi, again, the lady who was shot in the face in Club New York. Lots of other things that we don't know about have happened as well. Kirk Burroughs was almost assaulted with a baseball bat, according to him, when he had to get back 25% of the stock in Bad Boy, which is ridiculous. So my question, guys, again, and I'm going to ask you guys, where do you think the violence that Diddy had early on came from? Where do you think he learned that from? Drop it in the comments. I'm curious to know how you feel about that. I'm going to get back to Diddy in a minute. I'm going to get back to some of the questions that I have, because this is all encompassing, right? I want to talk about, and I'm not done with it. I want to give you my standpoint on it, but I want to talk about Rob Reiner also, because it's a current event. And there's a synonymy with Diddy and Rob Reiner, right? A lot of you are parents. A lot of you are grandparents. A lot of you have parents that are still amongst living. And this is kind of part of it. Rob Reiner had a son that was not yet 40 who killed him and his wife. I had to go back and look at some of the things to try to understand how that happened or why it happened. And for those of you who don't know, Rob Reiner was Michael Stivic in All in the Family. He went on to become a director that directed When Harry Met Sally in 1983 and 1992, I believe, A Few Good Men. He's directed a slew of very successful movies. Donald Trump, I don't know why he said has what's the name of that syndrome? He calls it something Trump syndrome, and 50 Cent made fun of it. I thought it was not a nice thing to say, but that's your president, right? So I looked at an interview that happened in 2016. Rob Reiner was sitting right next to his son. And by the way, this is all one teaching moment. And they wrote a movie together. And I looked at his son and I saw that his son, his eyes were very, very dark. You could look at that yourself and look back at this interview. And, Rob Reiner said about his son, who started going into rehab when he was 15 years old and was in rehab a total of 17 times, which tells me a lot about his weak soul and his failed presence here on this planet and what he was here to ultimately do. He's sitting there with his father in 2016 in an interview when they were talking about the success of the movie that they wrote together and they filmed. And I forget the name of the movie. If you know the name of the movie, please drop it in the chat. I think Chain of Command is watching and you know the name of the movie so that everybody knows what it is, right? So Rob Reiner's son is sitting next to him, very, very poised. He didn't move a lot and his eyes were very dark and heavy. And I saw the energy of percolation in his eyes. His son was scheming on his father back then. I could see that Rob Reiner's son was romancing the fantasy of slitting his father's throat even back then. It was in his auric field. I saw it in his eyes as clear as day. I also saw that he had fantasies of torturing his parents, burning them. He had a list of ways that he wanted to kill them. This was all playing and dancing in his eyes. And I saw it as clearly as I'm looking at you guys right now. His father, unfortunately, didn't see that at all. If you look back at that interview from 2016, I also saw that there were two other times that we don't know about where he actually did try to kill his parents. And his parents were none the wiser. Now we get to an argument that was had at a Conan O'Brien party, and they got into it so loud that everybody looked over and they saw them arguing. And I don't know if it was that night or the next night, but he slit their throats, people. When you slit someone's throat, that's a hateful way to kill someone. That told me that he had some very built up hatred towards his parents. Housed him. Now, the problem with Rob Reiner, and this all has to do with Diddy, which all has to do with parenting, which is part of my largest point tonight, guys. So stay with me, okay? So Rob Reiner, who basically ignored the fact that his son started dealing drugs early. He dealt with that reality, but his son was in rehab 17 times. Rob Reiner should not have had his son living in the mansion with him. Rob Reiner failed his son as a father because Rob Reiner came from the school of non-punishment, non-corporeal chastisement. He spared the rod. Now, I'm not saying that corporal punishment or the beatings that we got as children in the 70s and in the 80s. Listen, I'm grateful for those, that strong hand that my parents had on me, that my aunt had on me. I'm grateful for the beatings that I got. When I speak to some of my people that are my peers in age, we laugh about it. My sister and I used to laugh about the beatings that we got, but we were grateful and thankful enough to know that our parents loved us and cared for us and were afraid for us growing up in society, being a loser or someone who was lackluster, who wasn't using their full potential. They were so afraid that they beat that lackadaisicalness out of us. My mother is still struggling with how clear and thorough I am. She's like, son, why are you? And I'm like, Mom, you created the monster of uh, time that I have in my consciousness. My mother always made me give an account of what I was doing with my time. Where were you doing? What were you doing? Where were you? And I always had to give an account. Sometimes I just lied to my mother. I was at the library. I was doing this just to get her off my back. But I feel like over time, I became very vigilant about what I did with my time. Now I have boundaries around my time, and I don't allow people to misuse or flagrantly help themselves to my timetable. I got that from my upbringing, and I'm happy with that because it allows me to get a lot of things accomplished and live life to the fullest. Robert Reiner got it wrong because he should have known by the 10th time, the 5th time, that his son was never going to amount to the success that he dreamed about his son having. And I also believe that he aided and abetted his son's destruction, and it cost him his life. The meanest way that you can dispose of someone is by slitting their throats or burning them at the stake or torturing them to death. To tarnish Rob Reiner's legacy that way is an evil thing. So let me ask you guys a question. What do you think should happen to Rob Reiner's son? Do you think he deserves due process? Do you think that he should be rehabilitated in prison? Do you think he should get the death penalty? I personally feel, if you want my opinion, I think he should be shipped off to CECOT, CECOT. I think he shouldn't be killed. It's too easy. It's too much of an easy way out. I think that he should live in the misery of an environment known as CECOT. And yes, that is a judgment. It's not an observation. It's my personal judgment, and I'm entitled to it, and I'm keeping it. It's a horrible thing that he did. But let's get back to Diddy. Where did Diddy get his calculative, diabolical sense of vampirism from? Where did he learn how to be that way? I don't know if it was from Clive Davis. Clive Davis doesn't have the reputation of treating his artists that way. Where did Diddy learn how to drug people and SA them and dangle the carrots in front of Cassidy as long as she hoped that she would have this album? And oh my goodness, shout out to the sex workers who came out. Clayton Howard was one, and he gave an article, a video article on the art of dialogue. And say what you want to say about Clayton Howard, but he literally talked about how Cassie was in love with the sex that they used to have, putting it lightly. And Diddy would watch them, which makes Diddy a cuck. Where did he develop that cuckery from? What is a cuck, Master Gano Grills? A cuck is someone, from what I know, I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Let's get the likes up, guys, please. Let's hit the like button, please, guys. A cuck is someone who has a significant other, mostly men, who are not able to satisfy their woman. So they get another man that's more endowed than they are, and they enjoy watching their woman being pleased by this more well-endowed person. That's what a cuckold is. Diddy is a cuckold. So I don't understand why he would be jealous of Kid Cudi. And it's funny, the names are a little synonymous, isn't it? That's kind of ironic. Why would you allegedly blow up Kid Cudi's car if your girlfriend, Cassie, under your permission and your agreement, had an army of sex workers that worked to try to satisfy her insatiable sexual lust. Why would you get mad if she stepped outside of that arrangement? Why did it affect you? Why are you so controllingly narcissistic? Diddy has a lot of strange, diabolical behavioral patterns. It's violent, sexually depraved, controlling, narcissistic, delusional, righteous indignation. You name it, he had it. Underneath all of the talent that he had, it almost as if the talent that he had started to take a back seat to the other things that started to develop and the tricky ways that he operated. And that's a warning for all of you guys. If you don't use the God-given talent that you have and you start to pervert it, it can become something else that can destroy you down the line. So those videos are very spicy, and it just kind of made me feel a little sad for Diddy that he stole a woman from Ryan Leslie and he still couldn't satisfy her, but she put up with his shenanigans. And I don't know what type of agreement that they made, that they just would high most of the time on ecstasy, GHB, and all of this stuff. And it's ridiculous. I also want to commend Diddy's personal chef and his executive assistant and everybody who has come out to speak publicly about their involvement with Diddy and kind of atone publicly, because I think they realized that I was on the wrong side of the fence. I was on the wrong side of history, and I have to cleanse my soul somehow talking about what I know. And I commend them for that. And I think that there is redemption and somewhat of a karmic reckoning that can be balanced out by doing that first, in the way that G-Dep, shout out to G-Dep, he got into some trouble and he actually turned himself in to do some jail time. He voluntarily turned himself in and said, you know what, I got to get this behind me. Let me just get it over with. And as a result, the people in jail with him, they respected that. That's a very admirable act, because he realized, I believe, that he was a menace to society and he needed to go and just sit down for a minute. So we talked about Rob Reiner, and for all of you parents who have menaces as children, it's very dangerous for you to have them in your household. You need to find some type of assisted living or something. But, I think Rob Reiner serves a great reminder as to what can happen in a very vehement way of having your throats cut and cutting your lifespan short, therefore your destiny. And, he's still allowed to talk about it. It's awful. We have a responsibility as parents to sometimes be strong with our children. And it also makes me question, I'm not going to call her name. You know her name. You can put it in the chat if you want. Out of respect, I will not say her name. But the way that she raised her son is now coming into question. And to her, she worked 1, 2, 3 jobs to give Diddy, Sean Puffy Combs, not yet Puff Daddy, Puff the Magic Dragon, to give her son, Sean Combs, a quality of life in Mount Vernon that she felt he deserved to have in the absence of his father, Melvin Combs. I get it. But now everyone's wondering what those jobs were and what it that Diddy or Sean Combs witnessed that gave him the substratus of being a pariah and a vamp in society. You are now coming into question, and that's awful. In essence, Diddy's brought a lot of shame on his family. How far are the people in his family going to be able to go in life in the coming days, weeks, months, and years before they renounce his actions? Or will they remain silent because they know that he's coming home, and I'm sure he still has a lot of money, and his money and his wealth can buy their silence. But what is the karmic repercussion behind even that? Master Gano Grills, is there a karmic repercussion behind just taking the money of my father and being silent? Yes, there is. But, the bag is powerful because it provides the comforts of life. But the comforts of life do not always equate to the destiny of why you're here and what you were meant to do. Something to think about, guys, if you're inflicted with where I should go and what I should do. Very interesting, isn't it? Okay, guys. So another thing, too, I wanted to talk about with this whole Diddy thing. He became somewhat of, something that I refer to as a darker ecosystem. What do I mean when I say that? If you look at Farnsworth Bentley, there's so many people that I haven't named that worked for Sean Puffy Combs publicly and Bad Boy Entertainment that did some compromising things. Working for him, he always asked people to compromise their morality and dignity just a little bit. A lot of times it was just a test. Ashanti talked about a time where her attorney and her mom, who was her manager, went to go see Diddy, and he gave her a bottle and said, "Smell that." And she was like, "Oh my God, what is this?" And Ashanti's mom was horrified because she said, "Oh, you just blew a record deal." But Diddy claims that he just wanted to see if she was going to keep it real. I don't think that's what Diddy was doing, according to what Ashanti's account is. I think Diddy was testing her to see if she was okay with the stench that was in that bottle. Because if she was, well, she probably would have been signed to Bad Boy and all of the other things that stench has to deal with, which is really, really sick. I also am thinking about Justin Bieber and what he went through as a kid. I'm thinking about Usher and what he went through with Diddy. I'm thinking about the time where it was years ago, but Kevin Hart kind of, stay with, watch this. Usher came in, he grabbed Usher and said, "Man, this is my brother right here. We used to wake up." Oh, pause. Why? You just told on yourself. Why is it that when you and Usher woke up, we wouldn't have thought anything about it if you didn't stop yourself and say pause, and you meant that because you had to cover up that. We didn't think that you didn't wake. We didn't think that you woke up in the same bed together until you said pause. And it wasn't the kind of pause, a joking pause that, us in Galacticus, we always say pause, and, because it's an exercise in creative listening. It was the kind of pause like, "Oh, I said too much." And then Kevin Hart, he didn't attack that part, but he'd say, "Man, come on, man, who wrestles for cornflakes?" But I think Kevin Hart was really attacking the fact that Diddy said pause after he said, "Well, me and Usher used to wake up in the same bed." How many of you caught that? How many of you have wondered, why is it that Justin Bieber is completely turned out right now and is the lover, so it seems, of Jaden Smith, who was kissed on the mouth by his father, which I never agreed with. And I've also seen Diddy's mom, I'm not saying her name, kiss him on the mouth. And they found each other. Now, I have two daughters. We don't kiss each other on the mouth. Maybe once in a blue moon, we kiss each other on the corner. Like, if they did kiss me on the mouth, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But it's not something that we always do. My daughters are grown. But the consistent kissing on the mouth of your parent, whether it's your father's lips and you're a male, or I think women can get away with that more, and it would be less questionable. But a father kissing his son on the lips purposely and, openly and on TV after the son is like, Dad, come on. And, you continue to do that. And then your son ends up being a weirdo. Is it Will Smith's fault? I don't hear enough people talking about that. I never did that to my sons. However, like, my son, shout out to Bojack, love you. We just had a baby shower for him. Congratulations to him and his significant other. And, me and my son always kiss each other on the cheek. Whenever he sees me, I love you, son. What's going on? You good? Da-da-da. My other son, Isaiah, always kiss him on the cheek. Never kissed him on the mouth. Maybe when they were babies. But it's just not right. There's certain things you just don't do. So I'm inclined to believe that you think it's okay to kiss your mom on the mouth and you've done this your whole life. Maybe you missed the cue that that's not really, what do they say? That's not the move. You shouldn't be doing that. What else that may have helped itself to, right? I'm thinking about the impunity of why no one is saying, hey, Usher, we heard the rumors about how you ended up in the hospital more than a dozen times. Is that true? Is it true that, in order for you to be as successful as you were, you had to go through the flavor camp? I mean, we talked about that, but what was happening in that flavor camp? And why were you with a grown man? And were you really passed around the industry? Same thing with, Justin Bieber, who was discovered by Usher and then brought to Diddy. That was weird. These are the things that have to stop in any industry because it's not right. And I would challenge more of you to talk about that and spread it in your social media or spread this. But it's a platform and it needs to be discussed. And let me say something for all the people who are sitting back and they're like, oh, that's Stream Master Gano just running his mouth and, you're snitching and all of that stuff. This is not a conversation that's not happening in barbershops and malls and beauty shops all around the planet today. We're not doing anything different that should not be done. This should be done. This is we're being proactive and dutiful about our responsibility in humanity to identify the actions of things that don't belong in society so that we can have a more healthier tomorrow for the generations come. That's why we're having this particular discussion. As uncomfortable as it may be, it needs to be had, it needs to be vetted, it needs to be revealed, it needs to be exposed, unearthed, and highlighted. It's very important for this to happen because I don't want my grandchildren growing up in the world where they're going to come across a guy like Diddy and his allegations and his bizarre sexual depravity and his drugs and dangling carrots and manipulating and stealing and lying and doing all of the awful things that he is accused of doing. I don't want that for anybody that I care about, male or female, that are even adults. I don't wish that on anyone. I once had a business partner, not going to say any names, but for those who know, if you know, you know. I found out that this business partner was doing something that was unscrupulous. We parted ways. He wanted to part ways with me. I didn't want to part ways. I didn't know about it, but when I looked behind the curtain, I saw, oh, he did me a favor by parting ways with me. And if you're watching, thank you for doing that. But when I looked, some information came to me about what he was doing. I was very upset. And I felt like I had a moral obligation to go back to all of the people that we dealt with as creatives in the industry space and tell them, hey, I am no longer associated with this individual and I have nothing to do with anything they do from this point on. Matter of fact, we haven't been connected since November the 6th of last year. I just wanted you to know. Now, some people understood it, some people didn't. Some people said, oh, well, you guys, I'm like that. No, when we will not be realigning. We are permanently, diametrically on two sides of the fence. But I did and performed my moral obligation by going back to all of the people that we were in business with and saying, hey, we're not associated anymore. You know how I do. I'm right and exact. I'm straight up and down like 6 o'clock. Whereas this guy, I can't speak for what he does and what he has been doing. And I didn't see the light that was there all of this time. And I've known this person for a long time. So I'm making a point, guys, again, that there may come a time in life where you may be faced with a moral obligation not to be a snitch. Let's erase that word. And real quick, right? I shouldn't have to do this, but I'm going to just for the heck of it. What is snitching? Snitching is if you commit a crime with someone, right? Let's say 4 people get together and they rob a bank. They split the money 4 ways. One of those 4 people gets caught. And he says, yeah, I can tell you where the 3 guys were. This is the plan. It was his idea. I was involved. And then they get paperwork and they get a lighter sentence, if not a complete get out of jail free card. That is snitching. What I'm doing is doing what's right. What Galighticus did, what Kurt Burrows did, what 50 Cent is doing, what 𝙈𝙗𝙨𝙩𝙚 has done, what 𝙂𝙧𝙞𝙀 has done, what 𝙬𝙗𝙀 and the whole long list of people that have spoken out against the evil of the allegations that are clearly public knowledge have done is the right thing to do. If you feel that it's not the right thing to do, you have to look at yourself. You have to grow up. And you have to question your lack of morality and decency and your consciousness, your psyche, your your mentality. You have to examine that. There are lots of people who have a problem with what 50 Cent has done. Now, by the way, 50 Cent has never said that he's a saint. Has he made mistakes? We all have. But what is important is his bravery and courage in being the executive producer along with 𝙂𝙧𝙞𝙀 in bringing this to the public as a public service, right? Whether or not you agree with 50 Cent's tactics is irrelevant to the fact. And if you think that this is, again, it was a black man tearing down another black man, that's not what this is. This is not about that. This is about right and wrong. Yes, there are grades in between. There are subtleties and nuances, but there's also a timetable that needed to come to an end and to bring this type of foolishness and these allegations to an end. If that makes sense, guys. Okay, so let's get to my particular, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to pose this as a hypothetical, but for those of you who are my students, adepts, initiates, and part of my community, you know that what I'm saying is quite literal. But I will pause it and pose it as a hypothetical for those people who are not part of the Galighticus community, who have never heard me teach, who have never heard me divine, who have never seen me perform the miracles that I have performed. I'm going to do you this service and just pose this as a hypothetical so that it's not so heavy and that your human default program does not exit out because of your inability to accept blindly from someone who you don't know is a divine avatar. I'm going to pose this as a hypothetical to make it easier for you to digest and give the plausible deniability if you need to, and make it a pretense so that it's in a land of make believe. But maybe later on, it will settle in your consciousness as, hey, wait a minute. I've evolved to a point where I remember when Master Gano said, that's right and exact. I also will say, a lot of people are going to watch this video and it's going to awaken something within them. And it's going to line up with the things that they know. As 𝙂𝙗𝙤𝙪 used to say, shout out to Bobby, wherever you are. And he would say, it's going to line up with this. You know, I got that from him. I'm very good about citing my sources. It's going to line up with your spiritual education and the things that you know, and it will awaken something within you that will reward you in the sense that now you have something to look out for, or another way of seeing things, or another lens of perception for the future that may actually save your life one day, or give you something to avoid down the line, or something that you can just learn from in great detail. Does that make sense, guys? Do me a favor. I want you to hit the like button for me, please, guys. Hit the like button, okay? Matter of fact, before we get to that last part of this, let me just scroll back and look at some of these comments, guys, okay? And shout out to all of my students, guys, everybody in Galighticus, and all of the people who are just watching. I'm glad you're here with us tonight. And wow, this is a whole lot. Woo, sheesh. Anthony Knox says, Jaguar ain't capping. Like I said, some people feel like we're not seeing that all of what she says is capping, but her credibility, the totality or a part of her credibility has been questioned. And you know, listen, if someone lies about one thing, it kind of damages the entirety of who they are, because now you're questioning everything that has come from this person. Think about that. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Oh, and you know, I'm annoyed by something else. Now, I heard 𝙂𝙧𝙤. I'm not going to call him any names because that's just not how I do things. But 𝙂𝙧𝙤 yesterday had, you know, and I could tell he was inebriated or drunk or high or whatever he was. He had this glee in his voice, and he was singing from the rooftops, and people were laughing at him, which probably his cohort of yes men. And he was like, Diddy took my... And he talked about all of the other things that I'm going to spare you because I don't communicate in that way. But go back and listen to what 𝙂𝙧𝙤's claims are about Diddy. Now, I heard that, you know, on the Breakfast Club, there's a sister on the Breakfast Club, one of the two women. It's not, she's one of the women who was a comedian. I heard that 𝙂𝙧𝙤 called her up and tried to straighten out whatever it was. I haven't heard that yet, but it doesn't matter. You can't straighten that out, 𝙂𝙧𝙤. You put it out there, and you probably going to try to say that you were joking, you were capping, you were trolling. I'm going to say this. There was another guy whose name I'm not going to call, but if you know his name, drop it in the queue, right? I'm going to make a point here. People say things and then they try to say that they were just trolling. There's a rapper who says that he learned how to tongue kiss from his mother. And someone was like, You learned that what from your mother? And he was like, it's my mother. It's my mother. Forget about it. What's my mother? Like, remember that? He didn't say he was just joking. He didn't say he was short until he saw the next day the blowback. Yeah, let me see if you guys dropped his name in here. Let's see. Did you drop his name? Yes, you did. You guys are great. I didn't say his name. He doubled down and said, oh man, I was just trolling. Really? Wow. So Ray J, you're probably going to try to say that you were just trolling or you were joking. Who jokes like that? You know, we know you love Diddy. You've aligned yourself with him. You've talked about how much, loves Kanye West, same thing. Listen, I get it. Diddy found Bad Boy and, Biggie, and he made Jodeci and Mary J. Blige. He's responsible for the look of the 90s, the sound of the 90s, and, the hybridity of music, but he stole a lot of that from Brucey B. Brucey B, I hope he gets the adulation that he deserves now in this post-Bad Boy age. You can't troll in that way without damaging who you are forever, right? You can't take that back. It's just, I don't understand, even with when Fat Joe, he's known as the Cap King now, and he says that, I know Fat Joe personally. I say what's up to him all the time. We respect each other in public, but I don't understand why he's so comfortable with the opinions that people have about how they just call him that. He just seems to go along with it. I don't get it. I would never want to be known as someone who is a liar, who doesn't tell the truth. I'm not cool with that. I don't like the word lie so much that I would never want to call somebody else a liar, even though I know that that's what they're doing. I would never want to indict someone that way, because lying is an ugly word to me. And I'm very, very sensitive about it. I would never again want to be known as a liar. That's why I don't bother with it. It's easier to tell the truth and deal with the truth, even if you don't say it, but at least you're not lying. Now, if there's a gun to your head and so there's some person who's not as pleasing looking, stay with me, and they have a gun to your head and they're like, I'm cute, right? Yes, you're gorgeous. Do what you got to do by all means. But, that's my spiel. So here we go, guys. We've gotten to the part of the evening where I'm going to give you my hypothetical on how is it that Diddy was able to have such a long run in the industry without getting caught up in the ensnarement of prison, being killed, being found out by the masses, being canceled. We don't know of him ever really being accosted and beat up. He's been protected, but that was not divine, people. Here we go. Again, I've talked about this. I've taught this to my students, that when you sell your soul to the devil, let's establish a parameter here. There is no red thing with a pitchfork called the devil. It doesn't exist. However, there is evil. There is darkness. There are demons. There are gods of chaos. There are gods of death who are beneficent to humans, right? Demons have a job to do on this earthly plane. I will not educate you on their names or how to contact them, although you may hear it from what I'm about to say. And that's not the purpose of where I'm going here, right? Guys, do me a favor. hit that like button, please. And doesn't matter. If you're watching this right now, I want you to stop what you're doing and hit that like button, please. Would you do that for me? Please. I thank you. I'm very, very grateful that you have taken a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. By doing that, you are helping us appear more to the people who would like to know more about exactly what it is that we are sharing today, right? If you're watching this right now, help us out and subscribe to the channel and hit the like button, please. Thank you so much. Okay, guys. So I humbly, as a servant to humanity, present to you my viewpoint on how something like this is spiritually, physically possible. And here it is. Again, we're posing we're posing this. I am posing this as a hypothetical. Sean Puffy Combs was very determined to make it. He went to Catholic school. He learned some things in Catholic school. Had a very commensurate education. He learned how to work hard. He also had a paper route and learned how to take over other people's paper route to his advantage. He learned early on how to fight. And I don't know if he was a good fighter, but he learned how to fight for what it is that he wanted very early on. I believe that he became very covetous also at that point. When someone is covetous, they have jealousy that overrides their envy, so much to the point where they are willing to cheat, lie, steal, and possibly hurt other people to get that which it is they desire. I believe that Diddy developed that early in life, before he was 20 years old. Let's keep going. Again, disclaimer, this is only my hypothetical view as a hypothesis, right? For entertainment purposes only and spiritual learning only. Yes? All right. Thank you. Namaste. Now, we go to Howard University. He was there for 2 years. He learned how to promote and finds out about Uptown Records. He is attracted to the success of one man known as Andre Harrell. I knew Andre, he was alive, and he is half of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from Profile Records, and he is a very good friend of Russell Simmons. I think that Andre Harrell earned his way to be partners or have a level of partnership with Russell Simmons, and these were the only guys who were the gatekeepers of the industry back then. Rush Artist Management, Def Jam, and Uptown Records, right? So you have Heavy D, I'll Be Sure, Jeff Red, and Father MC, Finesse and Sequence. That's was who was at Uptown Records before Diddy got there. Diddy gets an Uptown record, and he was very heavy on the street, going to clubs, having his eye on everything that goes on out there. He has a lot of energy. He's in college. He's driving back and forth from Howard University, which is located where? In DC? Am I right? I'm not sure. Drop it in the comments if I'm wrong. He drives back to New York. He's going back and forth, and he's promoting parties, and he's doing things, and he gets with Andre Harrell. Andre Harrell gives him an intern. I think we're set up. I'm not sure. Just bear with me for a second, guys. I think we're okay. Okay, cool. So he's driving back and forth and he's promoting parties. The parties are doing well. I remember the parties before City College, and he's making a name for himself. Promoters have the responsibility of getting all the bodies into the clubs, of having all of the people pop bottles from all walks of society. And, sometimes, now, if you don't know, promoters get sometimes part of the door or all of the door, where the establishment gets the income from the bar, which could easily be anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 a night. There you have your motive, right? So Diddy's promoting parties, he's doing well, and City College, we already know that. However, before he does City College, here's where the hypothetical comes in. We already know that Diddy's drive is unquestionable. His work ethic and his willingness to make it is undeniable. He has already said, I'm going to do anything and everything I can to be a mogul, to be a millionaire, to be rich, to be known, to be famous. All of that. Diddy did that. He said that. And his actions prove that, right? There might be some friends of Diddy that can tell you how driven he was even back then. Again, when you say I'll do anything to make it, you open yourself up to the intelligent forces who can and will entertain that proclamation. Even if you don't say it out loud, it becomes registered in your aura. If you're the type of person that will unalive somebody, that also becomes registered in your aura. When you come across someone who will unalive you, you can sense that in their aura. And you may not want to tangle with a person like that because you don't have the proof that they may unalive you. You just have the feeling. The feeling in the solar plexus, the brain, the solar plexus brain is 600 times faster than the neurological brain in your head. The solar plexus brain is 600 times more faster and processes quicker than the brain up here, which is why we say, I got a feeling something ain't right. I got a feeling it's going to be a good night. I feel this, I feel that. Feeling things are faster than the processing aperture of lyrics and the spoken word, right? So when you feel something about someone, it is faster than the conveyance of words. And that is brought to you by the brain in your solar plexus and in your gut, if that makes sense. Let's keep going. The intelligent forces that read that about your auric field and your energy will respond to your willingness to do anything to make it. This is how circumstances are attracted to you. People are attracted to you because they are sent to you by those intelligent forces who see you as someone that they can use to feed upon. Let's help this guy make it because he's willing to do anything and everything. So the things are attracted to you. This already happened before City College, guys, hypothetically, plausible deniability, allegedly, as a spiritual form of entertainment. These intelligent forces gave him the behavior of everything he needed to do to attract multitudes of people. Let me say it again. These intelligent forces gave him the gnosis and the indwelling knowledge of exactly what to do, what to say, and how to manipulate and over promote this city college event to be overpacked and over promoted by making it so irresistibly attractive that the people who were there had no other choice but to bum rush the show. I've been in bum rushes before, and for someone who is not physically astute, it could be a scary thing. For anyone who is not physically able, it could be the end of your life. I'm not saying that the 9 people that lost their lives were not physically formidable, strong, or capable. They were just overrun by the sheer mass hysteria of desire from the intelligent forces that endowed Diddy with the event that was going to be a feeding ground and a benefit for their own darkness. And Diddy, or Puff Daddy at the time, was the catalyzer to the intelligent forces that had a wonderful feeding frenzy that evening. Let's keep going. These intelligent forces continue to aid Diddy in his behavior. And if you watch Diddy throughout the years, this is where he starts to develop his bizarre behavior and his strange appetite and his amazing knack to attract trouble, but to be impugned and to prey on people and to get away with it, to break the law and still evade prosecution. No man is that intelligent that they can singularly evade the law at large without the help of the intelligent forces that has been guiding him all of this time. How do we know that? Don't get mad at me, guys, but I believe that Diddy is very driven. He's very talented, but I think he's dumb. He's done some dumb things and says, I'll get away with it because I know I'm going to get away with it because I don't know, I just have this thing where I've gotten away with this so far. That's the actions of a dumb person. And I don't mute the stupidity of some of the things that he's done, like take a baseball bat to Kirk Burroughs, according to him, and threaten him and say, hey man, I need that 25% stock back with a baseball bat, instead of saying, hey brother, listen, man. And he didn't give him back the stock. That was dumb. To put gamma hydroxybutyrate and to drug people when they come to your parties and have these orgies and all that stuff, that was dumb. Let me prove again my hypothesis. Diddy would be up for 2-3 days having sex with whomever. How was he able to do that physically? I know that he used to take Cialis and GHB and Astroglide and the baby oil and all the pink cocaine and the ketamine and all of those things. But even with those things, how was he able to continue his lust? Or was it his? Or was it the demons and the intelligent forces that have been guiding his behavior all of this time? I hate to say this, but I never liked Diddy's, like his down here, like his mouth and his jaw. I never found that aesthetically pleasing. Please forgive me for that, guys, but I never liked how it looked. Come to find out that it wasn't really that. It was the energy that was inside of him that I was responding to that I didn't like. So I hope this helps all of you who have been secretly aberrant to Diddy all of these years. There's something about him I don't like. You're okay. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not a mean person. You weren't judging him. But another part of your physical intelligence was giving you the warning sign that you were dealing with and looking at and observing a cacophony of forces that are lensed in one man. And to feed their ravenous appetite, we have to prey, not P-R-A-Y, but P-R-E-Y on innocent victims. And we'll get away with it because we have the intelligence of how to do so. How? Master Gano Grills. You're saying a lot, right? I just don't know, but let me explain to you. Intelligent forces are evolved enough that they can cloak their actions and their presence right before your very eyes. You can't see reptilians because they know how to appear as a human. Master Gano, come on, man, you're losing me. You're wilding. I don't believe in reptilians. That's that bull. That's spooky. Like, shout out to Sonetta. I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that reptilians are real. And they can cloak themselves as a human. And there's lots of proof of how they glitch. How many times have you seen the videos of the newscasters' eyes that go vertical instead of a pupil? That's a reptile. There's something inside of them that glitches because they've held the cloak for too long. It's not indefinite. They have to get back to their habitat, very hot, dark atmosphere, and then they can become themselves again. But reptilians can hold their form for a specific amount of time. I just told you that for another way to help you to understand that there are also other intelligent entities that can cloak you and make your actions impugnable or unquestionable, or give you just enough plausible deniability that you don't convict them, that you don't judge them, and that you turn a blind eye to it, or a deaf ear, or cognitive dissonance. I'm like, I saw that, but oh well. Can't stop, won't stop. Bad boy, baby. How many of you have been guilty of that? How many of you ignored the bizarre, resounding, in-your-face behavior? Like when he destroyed the office, oh, I'm a savage. I got to get whatever I want. How many of you ignored that because you thought it was cute or funny? How many of you ignored the fact that Shine went to jail for 9 years and Diddy didn't put any money in his commissary? He didn't exonerate him. He was just like, hey, man, that's, par for the course. That's what demons do. How many of you ignored the fact that Biggie's first album was called Ready to Die and just scarfed it off as, well, it's Bad Boy? Or his second album that was entitled Life After Death, but that wasn't the name of it while he was alive. How many of you ignored all of the warning signs, the telltale signs that this man and his actions and his conglomerate and his institution is actually an evil manner, an evil force in the industry? But the musicality that they produced, you danced to it, and you weren't able to separate the two. Let's keep going. Again, my humble opinion is that Diddy has never been so smart that he could solve the crimes of evading capture or law enforcement to his alleged crimes. because he himself has done things that are very dumb. I'm inclined to think that the intelligent, dark, demonic forces around him were responsible for keeping him out of prison. Well, Street Master Gano, why is he in prison right now? Well, it's a great question you pose. Every single deal that you make with a darker principality comes with a timeline and an expiration date and the fine print. And I'm 99.9% sure, only my humble opinion, that Diddy didn't give up about the fine print, the timeline, the warnings, or the expiration date. It was about 31 years, 30 years. Things are going to start to break down. No deal with the darker principality is indefinite. So I would say that the reign of this man and his sponsors in the darker corners of existence has come to an end. And you have to look at people who defend them also as part of the problem and culprits, and people who are under the spell, or people who are so ignorant that they cannot see and are not willing to see the injustice. And it's kind of a favor because now you know who you're dealing with or not. But those things need to change. So I hope that his children will one day come into the light and renounce their father, and I hope that they'll be okay. I don't wish death a hard time on Diddy. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for the innocence that may be left in his personality. I do feel bad. I was actually thinking about this last night, and I felt really bad for who Diddy could have been without the meddlance and the adhesion to darkness that he so willingly brought into his life. I feel bad for the people that he hurt, for the careers that he destroyed, for the dreams that he derailed, for the destinies that he turned into fate. I feel and have compassion and empathy for all of the people that have been negatively impacted by this individual, but the larger agency of darkness that was behind the success of his capture or his evading capture and not being prosecuted in the court of public opinion the way he is now. So thank you, 50 Cent, for putting this together, and Alexis Stapleton. Thank you, 𝘖𝙗𝙨. I can't wait to watch your documentary. Thank you to all the people that have put a spotlight on this. I commend your bravery, your courage, and all of the victims that have spoken out, all of the women that have been. I'm going to share one more thing with you. The woman that was raped by Diddy. I'm going to tell you a story. If you haven't seen the 5-part series of The Fall of Diddy, check it out. But there's a woman on that, if you want to know the source, who her boyfriend worked for Bad Boy. And her boyfriend, I think, was an engineer or producer. And she would go see her boyfriend at the studio, and Diddy would say stuff like, yo, man, don't bring your girl around, whatever he said. But he had his eyes on his girlfriend. And Diddy allegedly called her one day and said, hey, man, your boyfriend is messing up and he's late and da-da-da-da-da-da. Matter of fact, I'm going to come over there and see you. So bizarrely, he gets in a vehicle, go see this girl at her house. She gets in the vehicle and her boyfriend's nowhere around, right? And he's like, hey, I need to talk to you. Hey, you want a drink? Yeah, well, what do you got? I'll have what you're having, right? Something like that. And she drinks it, and they go driving back to the studio. She starts to, tap herself because she starts to feel a little lucid. She starts to feel a little like, I don't know what's going on, but They walk past the studio and they go into a place that has a pool table. Next thing you know, she's, as they say, buck naked on pool table with her hands behind her back. I know you guys think I'm trolling in too deep. No, that's not what we're talking about here. But she kind of comes to and she sees Diddy slathering himself with something that smelled like menthol. I don't know what that could have been. If you guys know what that was, because I'm curious, drop it in the comments. What was that strange menthol smelling substance? I don't know. But then he's walking towards her and he, forgive my language, he anally inserts himself savagely into her and violates her in that way. Then he grapes her, G-R-A-P-E, from the front. Then she comes to on the couch without her undergarments, and she's trying to, she's still fuzzy because she's just coming out of it. And she bolts out of the studio. She gets her way home, and oh no, she calls for a friend to come pick her up. Her friend, she tells her friend what happened. She goes home and she, like a lot of men and women who have been sexually violated, you don't want to file a report. You don't want to go to the police station. You just want to get the filth off of you. I get it. You want to wash it away. And, from what I've heard, consecutively, consistently, you're staying there for hours. You just want to wash it all away. She did that. And this happened a long time ago, and she's still as fresh emotionally as she was about it the day that it happened. That woman is not lying. That's not an allegation. I believe her. I believe little Rod when he said, sometimes I would wake up with women in the bed, and some days it was Diddy, and I was burning from behind as he looked in the camera very, very poignantly. Let's go back to this woman that was sexually assaulted by Diddy. Not allegedly, according to her. I have women that I care about in my chain of command, in my family, my mother, my daughters, my granddaughters, my friends. I can't fathom any of them going through that, and I hope it never happens to any of you. And there are some of you, because it hasn't happened to someone that you can't empathize with the justice that they deserve. You can't sympathize with or have compassion with the horror that they had to undergo because it's not close to you. That makes you somewhat problematic. You have some work to do in your compassion, in your chakras, so that you can empathize abroad and outwardly. That's a different video. That makes me really upset that any man or woman has been accosted that way, has been violated that way. I can't say I would not have unalived someone if that ever happened to me, with no question. So these people deserve justice. This deserves to be spoken about. It deserves to be exposed. And again, the people that are still Diddy defenders, shame on you. Grow up. Wake up. There's something wrong with you if you are still continuing to find a reason why 50 Cent is wrong for putting that out there. This is not about 50 Cent. He's not the one on trial. He's not the one in prison. He's not the one that's been alleged of doing this. Although I do realize that he does have allegations about him as well, but that's not what we're talking about here. He's made his mistakes and I'm sure he's paid for them, but he has atoned for that, I'm sure, because he has the good karma of success. So if this video has done something for you and helped to edify you on how someone like Diddy has been able to get away with all that he's gotten away with, hit the like button. subscribe to the channel, share this video with a friend, watch it over again. And there are going to be people that take this video and flip it and bounce it and, the spiritual parts of it and, act like they have some type of spiritual gift. I expect that. But you heard it right here first. That happens with a lot of my videos. People like to borrow lavishly from it, create a platform. All of a sudden, they're a spiritual advisor or they're Lord Thoth or something like that. It's ridiculous, but you know where you heard it from first. And I posed it again as hypothetical. All right. So to the people again who are parents out there and you have a weak soul that is clearly showing you that they're evil, get away from them. It doesn't matter if they're your blood or not. Find a way that you can get them committed somewhere where you're safe, unless you're okay with them slitting your throat or burning you in your own home. If you're okay with that, keep doing what you're doing. But children want a strong hand that gives them tough love at times. They won't tell you that. They'll bang against the wall and cry and kick and scream, but they respect that, they want that, and they need that. And it is your obligation to do that. And 𝙈𝙗𝙨 is great of a film director as he was. By the way, he said that he didn't feel he was great at anything. He says, I'm an okay actor, I'm an okay director, and I've had more success as a film director than I believe I'm worthy of having, or something to that extent, and I get it. But you failed your family because you robbed your family of the heads of the family by ignoring something that needed to be dealt with strongly. You were too passive with your son. And that's why he slit your and your wife's throats. And that's all on you, 𝙈𝙗𝙨. And I feel bad for your soul and your fans and your two surviving children and everybody this is going to affect. And I hope, 𝙈𝙗𝙨, that your papers were in order. But if I was your spiritual advisor, I'm going to end this on this: if I was your spiritual advisor, right? If I was your spiritual advisor, 𝙈𝙗𝙨, and you came to me as a professional, I would have told you years ago, have your son committed. Do not allow him to live with you or anyone you care about or anyone that you know, and warn the people that he is very dangerous. As your spiritual advisor, 𝙈𝙗𝙨, who is no longer amongst the living, I would have warned you to get as far away from him as you can, because I saw clearly in 2016 with that interview that he wanted you dead then. And he had been fantasizing about killing you. His wife, your wife, he didn't start fantasizing about that till a little bit later, but he really wanted to kill you. And it's from a past life disturbance that he came into this life to get you again. It's very, very clear. P. Diddy, if I was your spiritual advisor in 1991, before the City College tragedy, if we could go back in time, and I was your friend even, and you said, Gano, because I was Gano back then, you said, Gano, thinking about throwing this party, yada, 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 yada. I would have said, Puffy, check yourself. What is your intention of throwing this party? And make sure that you are, this event. Make sure that you have enough security, man. Make sure you dedicate this event to a God of light. Dedicate this and I would have told you this in 1991. Dedicate this event to Chang'o. Dedicate this event to Lord Ganesha. Dedicate this event to Ogun. Dedicate this event to Tehuti. Before you do anything, I know you don't believe me, Diddy. I know you're a Christian. I know you went to Catholic school, but trust me. Had he done that, that tragedy never would have happened. As your spiritual advisor, if I am that to you, I advocate that you watch this video again, study it, make it part of your operating system. Look for the clues of where that's happening, because microcosms of this debauchery and darkness is not going to stop on this planet. I hope and pray that it does, but you can do your part and unearth the darkness before it gets too dark all around. It is your responsibility. It is also your responsibility not to be silent and to shine a light on the darkness where you see it, so that it doesn't affect the society, the community, the world, possibly your family and people that you care about. Does that make sense, guys? All right. Thank you for joining our If I Was Your Spiritual Advisor. We will be back again next Woden's Day, which is Wednesday at 9 o'clock for another episode. We're going to go live. Get your popcorn, get your sea moss, and come hang out with us. And we'll answer some of your questions and be a little more interrogative next time. And I'm looking forward to being with you guys again. And thank you so much. Thank you to my students, chain of command, initiates, adepts, and to those attendees and initiates in the order of hypernatural magic. I'll see you guys soon. Good night. Namaste.